So why not get into it? I was going through the card with my kid. So a couple of things. I know on the undercard, we've got Grant Dawson, Jelton Almeida, and Peyton Talbot's a minus 1,200 favorite, which is just massive. If you look at the non-pay-per-view part of this whole card, number one, really good fights. Number two, on the whole, pretty big favorites. This is a very sort of like minus 250 and up kind of betting card, even when you do get onto the pay-per-view side of things.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And if we just start in terms of the betting favorites with the main event and the co-main event, right? Khabib Nurmagomedov cornering both guys with belts on the line. I mean, this is just beyond exciting for me. For those of you who don't know, Khabib Nurmagomedov, 29-0 as an MMA fighter, retired very early, could have certainly got good, still competing, could be competing now. My brother asked Aaron Bronstetter on the Anik and Florian podcast which one of these favorites he had more confidence in, right? And it's fascinating. Merab Dvalishvili in his first title defense is what, plus 260 against Umar Nurmagomedov, Khabib's cousin. But I will say to you, Gresh, right? We're a gambling show. I went on the Anik and Florian podcast this week on Place Your Bets, and I was given $3,000 to play with. I put 2,200 on Umar Nurmagomedov. I know Merab personally. I love Merab. I hope he doesn't ever see it. But I just think Umar's undeniable. And I brought up the point on the show, right? Ilia Topuria wasn't really him until he was him. And then he beats the greatest two featherweights of all time, both by knockout, Max Holloway, Alexander Volkanovski, and it's a different conversation. So I think Umar is going to arrive this Saturday. I love Umar in that spot. One of the fights that I want to just get your opinion on quickly that's close on paper, Jamal Hill, Yuri Prochazka, light heavyweight. Fascinating, right? I think for Jamal, a lot of people think that he is going to be more technical and smarter than Yuri Prochazka. Yuri is scary in the octagon. I know Jamal well. I'll be rooting hard for my boy Jamal Hill.
I think Jamal Hill ends up winning, and I kind of think Jamal Hill with some of the antics sort of away from the octagon. You know, you're throwing $20,000 at people to come spar at you, getting into it with Pereira again and sort of beefing a little bit there. I kind of feel like for Jamal Hill, there's a little bit of a, I need to reprove who I am here in this fight against Yuri Prochazka. And look, the thing with Prochazka to me is that you just don't know where he is going to come from. And there is that unpredictability in his fight style. But to me, I feel like this is a, hey, I'm still here and still a real contender fight for Jamal Hill, because let's just say he is on the losing side of this. That all, but I mean, that knocks him down the ladder in terms of trying to get to, you know, another championship opportunity. So I think there's all the pressure here on Hill in a lot of ways. People think what they think of Prochazka, and that's fine. But I like minus 115 Jamal Hill right now. I actually think he can finish this fight.
Oh, I agree. Absolutely. I peaked at under 1.5 rounds plus 130. And what I'll say about Jamal Hill, and I am on an island here, but the last fight with Alex Pereira, right, when it ended, there was a little bit of a break in the action for a nut shot or whatever, and Jamal Hill wasn't just quite ready back in there yet. And it's not an excuse, not making an excuse. I don't think Jamal would use it as an excuse at this point. But I think that moment will sharpen his focus for this particular fight. He is an elite athlete. Cody and I have been on the basketball court with him. Watching him rise up and draining a three-point jump shot, he looks like a professional athlete. I love Jamal this weekend. So for you, right? Let me the question that was posed to Aaron Bronstetter, right? Umar Nurmagomedov, huge favorite. Islam Makhachev, huge favorite. Do you look at either as potential to lose their belt, or excuse me, to be upset?
Merab gives me pause. Okay. But I don't feel like not that there isn't 100% commitment to this fight. It just feels like it's a little quick for him. So that's in the back of my mind. However, I mean, come on, Umar Nurmagomedov has been a machine. And it's more than just being a Dagestani fighter that is trained by Khabib, right? Because you look at Makhachev and you look at Umar, and yes, I get it. I know who they're trained by. They come across as robots. But there's way more to their game than just being these Dagestani grapplers, right? We know how Makhachev has added to his game. And for Umar Nurmagomedov, this will be a great test because to me, Merab's one of the toughest guys in the UFC, and he's also a little, how do I say this politely? they're all touched in the head, but with Merab, it's like a touch and a half, if you know what I mean. There's another something there with that guy to where Umar is really going to be tested. But with Khabib in the corner, makes all the difference in the world for these guys, Shay, does it not?
No,
you just
no question about
that
it.
guy. He's so on top of it. It's wild.
And I'll just tell you right now, when you talk about Khabib in the corner, right? When Bilal Muhammad finished Sean Brady in Abu Dhabi, he said to me, he's not sure if he finishes him without Khabib pushing him for the finish in the corner that night. It's the only time Khabib has ever cornered my boy Bilal Muhammad. But Cody, if you pick up Renato Moicano, Beneil Dariush right there that you had on the board, right? Ooh. Beneil Dariush, a fascinating story for me. 2023, he loses to Arman Tsarukyan and Charles Oliveira. Didn't fight at all in 2024. He is an elite mixed martial artist. You don't like the E word with Justin Herbert. Beneil Dariush is elite. But he gets a guy, Renato Moicano here, who's a favorite and should be, right? But Dariush had won 8 straight, I think, before 2023. So Renato comes in, he's hot, but it's a fascinating thing. And for me, trying to handicap fights when a guy's been out for a year is one of the most challenging things. But it's a gambling show, so I am going to give you a play. Also that I gave out, I have a 2-team parlay, Renato Moicano and Grant Dawson. I like this Cody's putting on paper. Renato and Jamal Hill, you're going to get plus money there. I like that, almost 2-1. But Cody, if you don't mind, put on paper for me, Renato Moicano and Grant Dawson. This is an American top team parlay, Gresh, that I gave out on the Anik and Florian podcast. Also plus money. Grant Dawson was undefeated. He lost to Bobby Green. He's since won 2 straight. I just think he finds a way against Diego Ferreira. So to me, a little American top team, little juice there. So those are my 2 plays. I went heavy on Umar and then a 2-team team parlay here.
I love those plays, and I wanted to run this by you. Do you think there is value to an Islam Umar both finishing, both winning by finish? You know what I mean? Like I do. Because I could see, I mean, I feel good about Makhachev being able to finish. Now, I don't want to, be disrespectful to Arman Tsarukyan, but come on, Islam is one of the best. He's a steamroller right now. And with Umar, I think there is kind of an expectation that, okay, he's really going to want to show out. So I wonder if the finish for both guys could possibly be in play. I
love it. And let's talk about them one at a time, right? So for Umar, right, he talks about wanting to have the perfect fight because he knows the whole team's going to go have to corner Islam right afterwards. So he wants to have a perfect fight. And what is Umar's path? To me, right? If he's just going to get picked up and dropped and get back up all night, that's going to be a 5-round decision for Merab. I feel as though the path for Umar might be finding a finish somewhere in here. Ray Longo even talked about some of the front kicks. When you heard Ray Longo talk about Umar, it's like he did, and Ray Longo, for those of you who don't know, is Merab's coach. He looked like he had a little bit of pause and a little, I don't want to say fear of Umar, but he thinks Umar is a very good opponent. And I think for Islam, gosh, man, Dustin Poirier gave him everything he could handle. And Arman Tsarukyan, I am a little bit curious about the gas tank. So so your points are very well taken. I think that would be an interesting parlay as well.
And then you look at the parlay right there of Islam and Umar, and I don't know what the value is on that. I mean, you get it down to minus 150. I mean, to get both of those guys in the 300s down to minus 159 is a pretty solid play right there.
And again, I will say, Gresh, quickly, if I may interject about that price of 159. Sometimes betting MMA, whether it's minus 180, minus 190, I'm much more willing to lay a money line, let's say up to minus 200 in mixed martial arts, because ultimately the handicappers oftentimes get it right. So for me, a spot like this getting minus 159 for those two, are we going to wake up? There you go. I like that, Cody, tying the Chiefs money line, that cross sport. That's nice, making that even money there. But are we going to wake up Sunday morning with either one of these Russians having lost? I'm not so sure.
No, I don't think so. I just can't see it. I love Islam. I've loved him forever, quite honestly. I love it how he needles DC. It's just hilarious to watch those two guys together. By the way, DC on Monday Night Raw last night, taking it in.
Yeah, with his boys.
In San Jose. Yeah, it was pretty cool.
So Islam, I may have told this story on this show, but UFC 310, Islam sort of creeping around the broadcast booth. He's looking for snacks, right? He's hungry. No one brought Islam food. So he goes to DC because he's hungry. You can be sure DC had plenty of snacks.
Oh my gosh, that's great. And of course, Islam loved asking him as well. He's the mischievous kid. And I love the look he gets on his face whenever he is needling DC and they have the camera on him. Is there anything on the under? You mentioned, so Grant Dawson, you're tying Dawson into a parlay, correct?
Yeah. And look, I'm going to do some film study I'm going to be doing a lot of work on this card as the week progresses. So to me, today is somewhat more about football, but the main card is so stacked here that I'm really focusing there. And a guy like Peyton Talbot, who I believe in, the price is just prohibitive.
And then the DeRitter Holland fight as well is pretty even, almost even money right now. That's the first on the pay-per-view card for UFC 311. And of course, again, hearts out to everyone in LA and what's going on. And Jay, I know you have a special connection out there. It looks like UFC is going to be able to keep this event in Los Angeles, which in a way I think is good. And hopefully everybody out there can, save what they can in terms of their properties, and people standing on their roofs with garden hoses, protecting everything they've built. So scary times out there in LA.